if you look straight on at somebody, that's a frontal view, and if you look from the side, that's a profile. But I'm going to do it as a 3/4 view. So a 3/4 view would be sort of turned slightly to the side. That way you can kind of get more of an idea of what their nose and everything looks like. Okay, so basically I look at the outside of the head, and believe it or not, a head, and what I do a lot when I'm doing portraits is I think about proportions, and I think about how different things are related to one another. So I don't just draw an eye. I don't get in here and draw the whole eye. I have to see the whole picture. I don't put the fleas on before I get the dog in. Does that make sense? I don't narrow down to one tiny little piece before I get the whole thing in. Does that make sense? Otherwise the flea might be in the wrong place, and you don't want your eyeball in the wrong place when you're doing it. Okay, so a head, typically the eye line is about halfway from the top of your head to here. Now, we mostly think, like, if somebody was going to draw a little picture of a face, a lot of times they put the eyes up like that, and that's because you're only thinking of this much of the face. Okay, there's actually all of this space. So in typical, your eyes are around the center of your head. Now, in babies, the eye line is very, very low. As you get older, that goes up and up and up until it's about halfway through. So you guys are between babies and adults. That's why teenagers look physically a little bit different. And people respond to that. They say, oh, it looks younger than he is, or it looks older. And what they're really responding to is where that eye line is. Isn't that interesting? They could never tell you that, but that's what they're responding to. Okay, so this is where the eyes are going to fall. And this is going, I'm going to do this. This is about where the middle of the face is, because I'm going to make the nose going in that direction. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay. So if here's the neck, and here's the eye line, the nose line is going to be about halfway between the eye line and the chin. Okay? Roughly. That's where the bottom of your nose is going to fall. And then about halfway between the nose line and the bottom of the chin is where the center of your lip line will be. So can you guys already start to see your eyes are going to fall in here, your nose is going to fall in here, and your mouth? You kind of starting to get with me here? Okay, and I'm also thinking about how round this shape is. When people draw portraits, sometimes they don't give you enough space back here, and they chop people's heads off, and they look like they, were laid down funny as a baby or something. You gotta make sure that you have enough room, enough volume for your brain in the back there. Okay, and your ears are gonna fall. They usually start about your eye line, and they fall down to about the bottom of your nose line. So that will help me determine where I'm going to put the ears. So that's in general. Now you have to look at a particular person to see where their idiosyncrasies are in their face. Okay, so right about in here. It's also if I stop talking, don't take it personally. It's because I'm going into the right side of my brain, and that's the nonverbal side. So I'm going to draw a little bit. Okay. So the eyes are going to be in roughly this area. The nose fall in this area. You starting to see it build? Can you guys see? Okay. Chin line comes down in this area. In general, the edge of your lip usually falls about in line with your pupil. So I do a lot of this sort of thing. I figure out where. I do a lot of measuring this way. Okay, so if I was going to measure things, I do a lot of plumb lines to figure out where things fall. This is a little high. Now, this looks like a big bald person in the head. Can you start to feel the volume of that head? We don't want it too short. But now we can add in hair. I'm going to do Gabby hair. Woo! Fun Gabby hair. Start to add Gabby hair. You can't even see your ears. Go like this behind one of your ears. Thank you. Cute little ears. You do not have bangs, and your hair is parted that way. When designing a picture, there's some rules that we follow. That have you ever heard of? Have you ever talked to them about the golden mean? It's probably nothing that would ever come up. In art, there is something called the golden mean, and it makes it helps artists to follow this particular mathematical rule. It's kind of mysterious. Like, people don't really understand why it works so much. But if you have a picture, you don't want, let me show you this. You have a picture of a, you're going to draw it. You'll do it much better than I will. Huh? You're going to draw it?
No, you do it.
I'm going to be my guest. Here you go. There you go. Hold on to that for a second. Okay, if I have a picture and I'm going to draw, say, a vase, okay? If here's my canvas, the golden mean tells us not to put things right in the center. It likes things divided into thirds for some reason. So if I drew a picture where there was a flower in a vase right in the middle, our sense is boring. Like, we don't like that, and we don't even know why. We just go and we move on. But if I took that vase and I moved it off to the side, dropped it down a little bit, maybe made this the table here, added a shadow, some cool flowers, ran things off the edge, all of a sudden, we're more interested in looking at that. If it were, like I said, if it were right in the center, our bodies just don't even like it. So, so dividing things into thirds, having a background be covered by a third of the table, and 2/3 being the background. You guys see that? What I'm saying makes it so much more interesting. If I took that and added it up to here, what's the word? Boring. We don't like it. You know, it just doesn't work. So, whenever you're doing art, you'll see this in art. Never put your focal point right there. Where we like to see focal points is if you divide it into thirds. We like to see it. Our bodies feel most comfortable if the focal point is in one of those areas.
It's the same for photography too, right?
Absolutely. It's absolutely the same thing for photography, for any 2D art like that. It really works. Even in interior design, if you came in and everything was just straight in the middle, sometimes there's not even words for it. Your body just feels like, you know, that table is in my face. You know, like, you don't understand why, but maybe if it's pushed off to the side a little and you added a little something on the other side, it works. And that's part of the golden mean, which goes back to math, and it has to do with thirds. The other thing is, you don't want 2 flowers in a picture. You don't even want 4. You know what you want? You either want 1, 3, or 5. Isn't that interesting? So there is something inside of us that prefers thirds, and it prefers things that aren't completely even, which I think is a really interesting math mystery. So does anybody have any questions? No questions? Really? Do you have any questions?
Do you think, can you draw the spiral, the golden ratio spiral?
Golden,
like where you split the rectangle. I mean, you may not remember off the top of your head. the rectangle with the square with the
With the
circles
circle?
out. If you can.
No, I could really do it if I was looking at a picture.
See if I can find
And it's kind of like the Vitruvian Man too, which is
Yeah.
the Leonardo da Vinci Man. That, have you guys ever seen that, where there's a man? Have you seen that? If you look at that really carefully, that is it's a lot like what Miss Williams is talking about, but it takes the human body and the proportions of the human body and relates it to math. It's really, really interesting. So if you stood there and you put your hands all the way out, do you know that from fingertip to fingertip, that's how tall you are? Isn't that cool? That's part of the Vitruvian Man thing. He was figuring things out like that. He was figuring out that this is how big your foot is. You know, so our bodies are really proportional too. It seems really long, doesn't it? From here to your elbow, that's how big your foot is. Interesting, huh? Yeah, stick your shoe up there. Isn't that cool? Well, I don't know if it works for heels. Isn't that crazy? But those are the things, like, look at that Vitruvian Man picture, and you'll see how our bodies are related to math and geometry.
I'll pull it up there.
Okay, that would be great.
I mean, if that's what you.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
I love that you're bringing this up. I think it's fascinating, and I used to have it. This is like an extra effort thing that kids have done. I've been pulling these cords around with other presenters.
Okay,
so
sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. And maybe me.
See, there's the golden ratio that I'm talking about, too.
Oh, no, it's not
Oh,
a link. That's why. It's my website.
Yes.
Here's the square. They take it and split a rectangle into squares. Isn't that what they do? And that's how it ends up. Here we go.
Yes. You notice it was not right in the middle, was it? Boring. Remember that. Every time you guys do a picture, if you're taking a photograph, don't stick somebody's face right in the middle. Move it off to the side a little bit. Okay? Move it off to the side a lot. You know? Be really creative. Move me off to the side a little bit. Isn't that cool? Now you got to make sure you hold the focus down where you want it focused, so it doesn't focus back there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Does that camera have the little thing where you can put the focal point in different areas?
I don't know.
Okay. That will be why.
It's mine.
It might.
It's a nice one.
But that is art and math in photography. Thank you for holding that, honey. It does not look exactly like it. Looks like a much older version of you because of the eye line. See, if I really want to do you, I would put your eye line. And then we'll put your cute glasses on. Harry, did you have a question?
Well, I was just saying, like, when you were talking about the right side of your brain,
Yes.
in art, Miss Smith made us, like, draw a picture using only the right side of our brain, like drawing our shoe without even looking at our shoe.
Yes.
Well, only looking at our shoe, but not looking at our paper.
Yes, exactly. Because she was trying to get you to focus on seeing, not on drawing.
Yeah, like not focusing
She
on
always
every
says
little
like
detail.
everything is in shape.
That's exactly right. Everything, you need to think about things in terms of shapes next to each other. That's an excellent way to do that, and we call that like a blind contour, where she has you turn so you're not even looking at it. And that's the secret of art, is that it's about seeing. It's about opening your mind to a new way of actually seeing